Dear ladies and gentlemen from around the world, we can say, welcome to this online event today. My name is Johanna Hasting. I'm head of the Foundation's office in Baden-Württemberg, which is in the south of Germany. Before I start today, if you want to listen to this event in German, please select on your lower screen the globe button and turn your language to German. We are translating this discussion into German, so you have the choice of either listening in English or switching to German. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation offers political education in Germany and abroad. For those of you following a discussion, an online event for the first time, I'm introducing you a little bit to what we do. With our events and also our publications, we want to help people to become more actively involved in political affairs. And that's our agenda for our work abroad and also in Germany. We support talented young students with scholarships. We have been campaigning for freedom, for the rule of law, for democracy, and for human rights since our foundation was founded in 1958. Our headquarters is based in Potsdam, Germany, and we maintain offices throughout Germany and in over 60 countries around the world. Today, this is a true joint venture between our offices in Stuttgart, with my team in Potsdam, with my colleague Katrin, and in Johannesburg with our colleague Inge. Thank you very much to my colleagues for making this happen. This is a good collaboration event. So you are part of an online event series. If you are joining us for the first time here, that's called Female Changemaker. With this online event series, we want to portray female activists and politicians from around the world. Those women are leading protest movements in their home countries, and they fight for democratic change, for more transparency, for the rule of law. In the last issues of this event series, we have had very moving discussions with women from Belarus, from Poland, from Tunisia, and from Russia, from Mexico, and from the United States. If you have missed one or the other of those online events, feel free to watch them online. We will post the link to all those videos in the chat box later on. So, where are we heading today? For the first time during this online series, we are looking at women in Africa, and specifically in Kenya. Officially, the Kenyan Constitution provides for gender equality. Nevertheless, women in Kenya find it difficult to get into political leadership positions and are significantly underrepresented in public office. Parliament, for example, is supposed to be composed of a maximum of 2/3 of the same gender, yet only 22% of members of the parliament are women. Demands from civil society to give women better access to such positions remain unfulfilled. So what can be done to bring more women into power in Kenya and address the exclusion and also the marginalization of women in Africa? Is politics representative for other sectors as well when it comes to women's rights and participation? This is what we want to talk about today with our two guests, and I'm very honored to introduce them to you now. Martha Karua is a longtime member of the Kenyan Parliament. Martha, you were Minister of Water Resources Management and Development, and also Minister of Justice, National Cohesion, and Constitutional Affairs. You are not only the most prominent politician and a role model to many young women in Kenya, but also a lawyer who is committed to fight for women's rights in your country. We feel very honored to have you here today. A warm welcome to you, Martha. Thank you for being part of this. Next to her
Thank you.
Welcome. Next to her is Sabine Odiambo. Sabine is the Deputy General Secretary of the German Africa Foundation, who is also our partner for this event today. Sabine, you lived in Nairobi for 8 years and you became a specialist for the East African region. In addition to working for various Kenyan NGOs, you have also held positions for the Goethe Institute and the German Embassy. It's an honor. Welcome, Sabine. Thank you for joining this event today.
Thank you.
Moderating this discussion will be, as always, for those of you who have joined us before, you already know Caroline Gill. She has a degree in European relations and a very long-standing experience in intercultural dialogue. For many years, you have been initiating and moderating discussions with international experts. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done so far, please visit her YouTube channel where she regularly posts interviews on various political topics with international guests and speakers. Welcome to you, Caroline.
Hello.
Before we come to today's discussion, we would like to know a little bit more about you, our audience, today. For those of you who have joined us before for Female Changemaker, you already know the game. We have prepared a short survey and we invite you to answer the following questions. There will be a little window popping up in your screen in a moment. We would like to know what's your gender. We would like to know from which continent you have logged in. Are you observing a democratic transformation in your home country at the moment? And also, are you observing that women are increasingly outspoken and visible in politics in your home country? So I will leave you to this for a couple of seconds so that you can start answering those questions. We are also offering this discussion on YouTube at the moment. So for those of you who are following on YouTube, unfortunately, you cannot take part of this survey, but for those of you here in Zoom, please try to answer. I will give you a couple more seconds. So this will not be quite representative as people are following through YouTube, but we are looking at the results. So what's your gender? Okay, we have 44% male and 56% female. That's something new, Caroline. We haven't had such a balanced audience in a long time. From which countries or continent have you logged in? Over 80% are logged in from Europe, 6% from Asia, 6% from Africa, and 6% from North America. So welcome to you from abroad, and also welcome to all the Europeans. Are you observing a democratic transformation in your home country at the moment? 61% say yes. 22% don't observe that democratic transformation. Maybe there is already a democracy or not. Are you observing that women are increasingly outspoken? 72% say yes. 22% say women are not increasingly outspoken. Thank you very much. That I think helps us a little bit in the discussion in a moment. One last remark from my side before we start. We invite you to post your questions. Please use the lower button on the lower end of your screen, the Q&A, to post those questions. We will try to tie them in. We will use all questions anonymously. So please don't post your name. Caroline will try to tie in as many questions as possible. We will probably not be able to answer all of them. So please don't feel offended. Usually there are more questions than we have time. And now, without much further ado from my side, Caroline, I'm handing over to you for a few remarks before Martha will take over then. Enjoy the discussion and thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good evening from Germany. Good evening from Stuttgart. Happy Friday pre-election weekend. In Germany on Sunday, we will have our parliamentary election. So we're very curious about the outcome, although we don't know it. So first of all, let me thank Johanna, not only for the introduction, but also that she believed in this idea to start with female changemaker and made this idea come true. And thank you also, especially this time, to Katrin and Inge, who prepared this event together with the Baden-Württemberg office of the Naumann Foundation. My name is Caroline Giel. I'm happy to be the host of the whole series. As Johanna already mentioned, it's already our 7th event in this year. We started on 8th of March with Veronika Zepkala, this inspiring woman from Belarus. And now, in late September, we continuing with the focus on Kenya. Well, with this series, we want to empower and inspire women to be courageous, to stand up. We believe that change can start at home, at work, in society, and it always starts with decision. And we introduce women from all over the world. We want to understand the motivation, learn from the situation in the country. And of course, we want to speak about the solidarity and the power of the moment. So we have now a little bit over than 1 hour for our discussion. And this time we will start with introductory remarks by Martha Karua, and then we will continue with our discussion. As Johanna has been introduced, you can ask questions in the Q&A function. Just use the button and I will try to cluster them and bring them in to Martha or Sabine. So Martha, I'm very honored, and Sabine, I'm also very honored to meet you online. You're there with your computer from Nairobi, from Kenya, and from Berlin, from Germany. So it's a pleasure. And now, Martha, the floor is yours for your remarks.
Good evening, everyone from Nairobi. And thank you very much, FNF, for putting this together. Kenya, like most other countries, is a signatory to the Beijing Declaration and to other international instruments that require the country to have legal instruments and policies to enable women's full participation in politics and in decision making. Our 2010 Constitution gives gender quotas, and in the Bill of Rights states that in all elective and appointive positions, not more than 2/3 of any gender should occupy those positions. It also obligates Parliament and the government to make either legislative or policy measures, or rather measures, to ensure this is fulfilled. In spite of that, 10 years after the promulgation of the Constitution, the gender rule has not been fulfilled in Parliament, not even in Cabinet, not in all other areas. There has been an increase in the number of women in Cabinet, in Parliament, occupying other spaces, but we never seem to have the political will to obey the Constitution as it is. So being one of the pioneer women in Parliament and being one of those who fought for the gender quotas in the Constitution and who has fought consistently for the increase for women in decision-making and politics, I felt that I ought to share my story. And I've been asked by many women and men when I will bring my story out to share and to inspire others. And with the partnership with FNF, in a few months' time, early next year, we should be able to have my story out. And sharing is very important. Hearing the experiences of others, learning from their successes, avoiding whatever pitfalls they may have faced. It is part of people, and sharing across the nations of the world encourages people to grow. We therefore value very much this partnership with FNF and forums like this one, where we are able not just to listen to one side, but to share our experiences and stories and encourage one another in the journeys that we are making. In Kenya, the 2010 Constitution brought about devolution of power and resources. We have 47 counties, which make the nation of Kenya. And those 47 counties are semi-autonomous. We have one unitary government, but power exercised at the national and at the county level. So we have 47 county assemblies. And in these assemblies, only 8 assemblies have fulfilled the gender rule. Others have not fulfilled in varying degrees. And at the national level, the National Assembly, the Parliament, and the Senate, that is the National Assembly and the Senate, have not fulfilled the gender rule. And I've said the cabinet has not. The Supreme Court had also not fulfilled the gender rule. But recently, we had a female Chief Justice elected, or rather appointed after competitive interviews. And now the Supreme Court, which is our highest court in Kenya, is in the right proportions. It has 3 women and 4 men, and that does fulfill the not more than 2/3 gender rule. So we have a journey to make. We are still in our infancy of our democracy, and it is our duty as citizens to ensure that we not only obey the Constitution and uphold the rule of law, but that we are also an inclusive society that values the participation of both men and women, of the marginalized, of everybody in society, and that way we will be able to tap the talent of everyone. Thank you very much.
Martha, thank you so much for these insights, for this introductory remarks. And as always, we want to start with your biography. You described yourself, or you are described as pioneer woman, and you're asked to tell others, other young men, women, about the source of motivation. And this is, of course, as I said in the very beginning, also the aim of Female Changemaker. Martha, bring us back to the beginning of your political career. What was the trigger for your engagement? What was your motivation?
Thank you. In the 90s or late 80s, I started off as a professional in the legal profession. I was employed as a judicial officer, a magistrate, and then I went off after 6 years to legal practice, to private practice. At that time, Kenya was under one-party dictatorship, and there was clamor for expanded democratic space. My journey started within the Law Society of Kenya, where we started as young lawyers agitating for plural democracy, for the respect for rule of law and human rights. And one thing led to another. I became a leader in the Law Society, and we continued pushing the government to open the democratic space. And when the government opened the democratic space in December of 1991, I decided to run for Parliament. I felt the need because we were telling women to come up and run alongside men. And I realized that as a woman who was already exposed, a woman who was already participating on the national stage, I was one of those women who were ready and could actually run. And I plunged into politics. I ran in the general elections of 1992, and I successfully was elected as a member of parliament. So I say I was pushed to become an agent of change by the repression of the late 80s and the 90s to fight for democratic space in my country, and that if I and others did not step up, then who would step up? As a citizen, we all have civic duty to our country. And those of us who feel they can run ought to run for office. Those who do not feel called upon to run also have a role to support, to bring in leaders who can be change makers. So my journey started as an activist within the Law Society of Kenya, within civil society, because we also formed the League of Kenya Women Voters to encourage women to run for elective office. And we have continued, not just as the League, but with many other civil societies, including the Federation of Women Lawyers Kenya chapter, encouraging women to run, letting women know their rights, and together with men of goodwill, together with religious organizations, with political actors, we have managed to not only pave way for more women, but to have the quotas that are in today's Kenyan Constitution, which we enacted in 2010. At my age now, I'm a senior citizen, and I still have energy, and I'm still on the political stage because I feel I should not exit when I still have energy and when I'm likely to leave my children and my grandchildren in a country that may be worse than when we started agitating. All over the world, there's been a regression in democratic space, and it is our duty to have a pushback to return our nations to foundations of democracy and the rule of law. My motivation comes from the feeling that the country is not like a wardrobe, which you can change. So we've got to fight to get our countries right. We've got to fight to have the change we want to see in our country. And I would want to encourage every person, especially the young, because in every country where there is change, the greatest number of people who push for that change are the young people, are the youth. Youth are the engine of change everywhere. The present and the future belong to the youth. I would urge the youth and all people of goodwill all over the world to join hands to restore the wind of democratic governance rather than the wind of regression that has been blowing around the world. I hope I have answered you.
When you look back on your career, and you just said that you're also advising young women, what are the key factors for your success or for the success of women in politics in Kenya? Is it education or relationships, soft skills?
I think I'll begin with education, because if I hadn't gone to school, if I didn't possess the professional background I had, I may not have been able to step up. My training as a lawyer, my exposure is what gave me the confidence to be able to point out the excesses of government, to demand that the government upholds the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. So education has played a big role. And yes, the power of networks, because you never can bring change alone. The power of networks, from professional friends to social networks. Some are religious networks, others are friends, others are networks within the political parties, networks within civil society. The power of networks, always working with others, trying to recruit people to see your view, trying to join hands with people who already hold the same views. This has been very powerful as an instrument of change. And even today, I rely on the power of networks. And even having partners like FNF is the power of networks, and which we truly appreciate.
Sabine, I want to bring you in. You are also the cooperation partner with the German Afrika Foundation, Deutsche Afrika Stiftung. You lived some years in Nairobi, so you know the situation on the ground. You know many networks. And to what extent you think that the biography, the career of Martha Karua is or can be compared with other women's biographies in Kenya?
Well, I would say, first of all, it is, of course, an outstanding career, because as also Martha already said herself, she is definitely a pioneer female leader in Kenya, because politics in Kenya has been a pretty male affair, and even more so in the 90s when she started off and when she was fighting for multi-party democracy among mainly male counterparts. And I mean, we had the first female cabinet minister in Kenya in 1995, and that was under the government of the former President Moi, which already has been described as not democratic. So Martha was one of the first female cabinet ministers in a democratic government, starting from 2003, as you, Caroline, already said, first as the Minister for Water and then Minister of Justice. And I think also what makes her outstanding is that she's known to stand by her principles. And politics in Kenya is known as a field of constant power struggles and shifting alliances. And I think she has proven on multiple occasions that she stands her ground on what she believes in. Like, for example, in 2001, she actually walked out on President Moi at a public function in her Kirinyaga district after the opposition was unfairly criticized and she was not given the opportunity to speak. Or another incident where she stayed in parliament while the whole opposition walked out in order to make her criticism be recorded in the parliament protocol. Also, I believe that it shows a lot of courage that she has had during her career. She also ran for presidency in 2013, despite everyone saying it's a two-horse race, because she believed she brought something else to the plate that the two main contenders didn't. And as she has also said, she has been a champion of women's rights. And I think that is something that many women in leading positions in Kenya have been doing, trying to mentor other female candidates because of the unequal playing field that we still have in Kenya. And also, I think what is special about her political career is that while many political big shots in Kenya have been shifting alliances, founding new parties, changing parties, she has actually stayed with nach Kenya, which brought about democratic change in 2003. What I believe that her work has also done together with other female leaders is to bring about this progressive constitution that Kenya actually has. Martha has mentioned it, the 2/3 gender rule that has not yet been applied though in most instances, but I mean, the laws are there. And that is definitely something that can be built upon.
Sabine, because you had the view from Germany, and then when you were living and working in Kenya, you can also compare it with the situation in Germany. But now I want to bring in a comment from our audience. I like it very much, while we are still speaking or trying to find this Wonder Woman. And because there are role models, women in everyday life who manage their family, their business, social interactions. So this was one comment from the audience. And so Sabine, what is the situation for women in general in Kenya if you compare it with Germany?
I mean, they are not just the strongest contributors to social life, I believe, but also actually to economic life in Kenya. I believe that 80% of the food production is actually done by women. Of course, one of the big challenges is that those women mainly work in the informal sector, which makes them very vulnerable to not only, of course, are the salaries lower, there's no social security, but also, especially now, what we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic made them very vulnerable. Many lost their income due to the strong restrictions because of the pandemic. So that's one of the challenges, and he's absolutely right. That is something, I mean, those are women that cannot make their voices heard in a forum like this, but that actually we would need to make more visible. And yeah, I mean, compared to women in Germany, of course, even here, it's not like here we have reached complete gender equality. I do believe that the discourses in Kenya are more to the disadvantage of women than maybe it is here. I'm sure Martha can also share her experiences there, what she had to endure as a politician about female candidates and the discourses they face during party primaries, during the whole election campaign, etc. Yeah, and maybe one thing I would like to add at this point, simply because it's something that many people do not know about Kenya's society, is that Kenya is actually, in mainland Africa, the country with the highest share of single mothers, which is about 15%, which is also higher than in Germany. So that is why it's, I believe, worth mentioning. And also here, we have seen it in this election campaign, we are talking about marginalized groups and also supporting single parents. And I think that's definitely a discourse that also is very relevant to the Kenyan context and maybe not fully exploited.
Martha, how do you face these challenges and how you encourage, how you motivate the other women? Perhaps every woman is not Wonder Woman, as it was so told, but the ones who face this, who don't have the same, let's say, chances in Kenyan society.
It is true that in Kenyan society, the playing field is not level for men and women. Starting with our political parties, most political parties will give the winnable seats, the chance to vie for the winnable seats, to men. And somehow there will be an effort to stand down women who could have won the winnable seats and promise them nomination. There is a misinterpretation of the gender quotas. And because there is a provision for gender top-up when we don't achieve the gender balance, women now are being relegated to the top-up seats. Whereas if there was a 50-50 chance for men and women to vie, we might not need any gender top-up at all. So the greatest handle women have is patriarchy, which resides in both men and women, because we've also been raised in that sort of society. So we are not raising our voices enough in the political parties that we belong to, because women form the backbone of the political parties. They are the best mobilizers along with the youth. And if women consolidated their voices together and gave their bare minimum in every political party, then the marginalization would end. When I first vied, the political party I was in marginalized me in party elections, 3 months to the elections. And I realized that if I waited to go for nominations in that particular party, they will marginalize me during nominations. So I went to another party, and that's how I was able to become member of parliament the first time I vied. I know a lot of women get discouraged when they are stopped. The other hand is that there is the perception and also the reality that women don't have money. But my many years in politics and now as a party leader has taught me also that the average man doesn't have money, just like women, but they have the confidence to mobilize it. The average candidate doesn't have money. Few privileged candidates, a few women, a few men may have all the money. Everybody else mobilizes using the power of networks. So the story often told that women don't have money creates fear in women instead of realizing that money can be mobilized. Women will hesitate and hope that somebody can come and support. But when we take responsibility as candidates and say, this is my burden, I'll do whatever it takes to win, I'll do whatever it takes to get the resources I need for this journey. And then whatever other support that comes along comes as a bonus. So what we really need is confidence in ourselves. And I've seen men exuding confidence, even when their qualifications are less than those of their women competitors. So we need confidence in ourselves. We also need to have a sisterhood, because I notice our brothers have a brotherhood. You find within political parties, even men who are competing against each other, silently supporting each other against a female candidate. We need a sisterhood, an unspoken one, that we support one another whenever we can. That doesn't mean we can't compete. Women can and must compete when it is necessary, because I may go for a seat that another woman wants. And I have done that myself. But when you do that, the way we compete must be different from the way men do it. No gender-based insults, no gender-based slurs. Compete on your strength rather than on the weaknesses of your opponent. And I find that way you will have a healthy competition, whether with a male or with a female, devoid of name calling, mature politics, where you compete on issues. So there are many, many other handles, because unlike men, women's social life and family life will be scrutinized. Women with young children will be asked about their children. Young male fathers will not be asked about their children. So the double standards in society. People will focus, and especially the media, on the women's dressing, while on the men, there'll be no such issues. There are a lot of distractions for female candidates. My advice, ignore all those catcalls. Keep your eyes focused on the ball. Remember, you want to succeed, fix your eyes on the success and keep going, whatever the circumstances. And chances are you're going to win. Thank you.
Can you give us some examples for successful civil society projects that for women empowerment you like and you think that they will support this approach, your approach, and to empower women in Kenya?
One of them is civil societies bringing women candidates together to share experiences and also for what they call training I call it more sharing of experiences, but hearing the stories of other women reaffirms the candidates. Hearing the stories of those who have been there, those who have attempted, whether successfully or unsuccessfully, is uplifting. When people hear my story, that when I chose to run the first time, I hadn't put money together for the campaign. I just plunged. And I mobilized resources as I went ahead. And money is not the only resource. Volunteers, human volunteers are a big, big resource, which you can quantify in monetary terms. And anybody who comes forward to assist, whether with materials or volunteerism, all those are resources for the candidate, on advice, on helping to put issues together. So all these are resources. And when people get to understand, especially women candidates, that even the male candidates have to go an extra mile to put resources together, that male candidates too struggle to mobilize the resources they need, I think it is very reassuring and affirming. The other issue that women have to remember is that within the family, if a male member of the family, let's say a husband, wants to run, most likely he will arrive home and announce to the wife and the family that he is running. He is expecting support. He is not asking for permission. But if it's the woman running, the woman has to convince the family first. And she may be doubted even by her family or discouraged and told why. Why do you want to take yourself in the rough terrain? So the discouragement may begin right at home. And women have to conquer their immediate environment first before venturing out. So it becomes a harder journey for a woman than for a man. And it is reassuring and reaffirming for women to hear the stories of others and how they have overcome. And I always tell people that my father is not a gender activist. He didn't see me as women in plural. He saw me as his daughter. He believed in me as his daughter. He didn't so much think of women empowerment. He thought about pushing his daughter. My brother saw a sister. So whenever we contextualize gender within the family, the support will come automatically. And when we conquer our immediate environment, they will also unleash their networks to us. And together with our networks, we can be able to expand our support base.
Sabine, as Deputy General of the German Afrika Foundation, you know many projects and initiatives also financed, co-financed by the German Parliament. Can you name successful projects in the field of women empowerment? And perhaps you have some best practices you believe in.
Okay, first of all, I would like to also say something to what Martha said, if that's okay. Because I believe what she said is important to understand, that there are two things here that are really difficult for women to politically participate. One is the cultural norms, and the other one is also the capacity. Because of course, shifting cultural norms is always a long-term project. And actually, data shows that as more and more women do participate in Kenyan politics, there is a shift. Like in 2017, in the elections, more women were elected because also the ones who already were in office from 2013 were more successful than first-time candidates. So that makes a point for if women prove themselves in office, that also then the attitude becomes more open towards women in leading offices. The other one about capacity is that often women candidates do not know that there are even places where they can go to address issues like the ones Martha said about gender slurs and gender insults, that because there's a code of conduct, but it's not really being enforced, and that is the problem. But theoretically, women can complain officially about such things, but also often they don't do because it's not being enforced, and then there's the feeling that it doesn't really help when they do it. And that is, I think, a problem that also translates into other sections of Kenyan life, not just the political participation part, but also when it comes to other matters in judicial affairs, for example, that women need the capacity and the information to actually know that they can go to court, for example, to fight for alimony, because Kenyan courts actually allocate a lot of alimony for single mothers when single mothers go to court. But now about your question about German initiatives. I mean, like now with view to Kenya in particular, the German-Kenyan bilateral cooperation focuses on agriculture, on sustainable development, sustainable economic development, and renewable energies. And there's one project that is a project by the German government together with the African Union, the Skills Initiative for Africa, which seeks to provide skills that are relevant to the employment market. And here is where they focus on women, especially in agriculture. And I think that is one of the challenges, because also, I mean, education-wise, Kenya actually is not that badly off when it comes to primary school enrollment. It's pretty even between boys and girls. Also, the transition from primary school to secondary school is pretty even. But then there's a break towards either the tertiary education or the skills that are relevant to the employment market. And that's why I think that's a good initiative and necessary.
I'm just checking the box for the questions. So dear audience, if you have questions to Martha or to Sabine or both of them, please do not hesitate to write them in the F&A or Q&A box, and then I can cluster and take them in, because I think it's a good time now. We have only 20 minutes, around 20 minutes left. So if you have questions, please join our discussion. Martha, I want to ask how the situation is in comparison, like Kenya and other African countries. Where are you standing there?
We are not doing very well, because in East Africa, we are lagging behind. As you know, Rwanda has the highest number of women parliamentarians anywhere in the world. Uganda has fulfilled the gender quota. They have more than 1/3 in parliament. Tanzania has fulfilled the gender quota. Maybe countries that are new members like South Sudan may not have fulfilled, and Burundi, but Kenya is a country that has one of the older countries. We ought to have fulfilled the gender rule. Then when we compare also with countries like South Africa, where they have no constitutional gender quotas, but where because of deliberate policy by the main party, the African National Congress, the ANC, they've been able to shore up the numbers of women in politics to almost parity. We cannot say we are doing well when we look around. Yeah.
Sure, Sabine, that you want to comment on this topic, because you have also the insights and the comparison data of other African countries.
Well, I mean, Martha is, of course, completely correct with the numbers she mentioned. And I mean, it's mainly Parliament's fault that it hasn't been enacted yet, because they were actually ordered by the court severally to finally enact a bill that will give guidance on how this gender rule is supposed to be reached, because that's the thing. The Constitution says it has to be just 2/3 of one gender, but the question is how. And on the county assembly level, I believe there is legislation to regulate that. That's why maybe those 8 counties have actually reached it, but on the parliament level, not yet. And I think as one of his last actions, the former Chief Justice actually recommended the dissolution of Parliament this year because it has failed to enact the 2/3 rule. And again, Parliament has not been dissolved. I mean, with view to the upcoming elections next year, of course, also the question is if it's timely, really wise to do so now, but definitely there has been a ruling. So actually the courts have been pretty progressive and also behind the Constitution on this matter, but there's a lot of, there's actually the lack of political will, as Martha already mentioned earlier.
Martha, you mentioned in the introductory remarks and also you, Sabine, the Constitution from 2010, the deficits we heard from you, Martha, and we also heard about the upcoming elections. Martha, so what the government has to deliver, what you asking them?
Now, the upcoming Kenyan election, we have elections next year in 2022. And if political parties, especially the leading political parties, if they could put their money where their mouths are, because their constitutions will be saying that they should adhere to the gender rule, they'll be promising women in their manifestos that they're going to implement. It is easy to implement even without the law. If a party is committed, all they have to do is give equal opportunity to both men and women to become candidates for contest in their strongholds. And because Kenya is divided into 47 counties, if a political party respected the gender rule in each county, ensuring that you balance your candidates in each county between men and women, then men and women would have equal chance of getting elected, and we would not require the gender top-up with singers. The Constitution, it ought to be voluntary. And this is a conversation we must continue to enter with our colleagues, with the political actors in this nation, and with the women to say, stand up and be counted within your parties. Let us demand for equal space to participate in the affairs of our nation. And we will get there slowly by slowly. Yes.
Germany and Kenya have been working together on the development policy for a long time. This is what Sabine has also mentioned, and the Federal Republic of Germany is one of the greatest supporters of the East African country, and the current total portfolio of the bilateral government development cooperation is over 1 billion euro. There is a question from the audience about the support. What can be done from Europe to support women's rights in Africa? And the other question was, is it still, or in a way, so that the support is not seen as one more sign of colonialism? A question to you, Martha.
I think there are German like FNF and others working in Africa and in Kenya on various areas, but all of them on democracy, on the rule of law, on development. And through all these interactions, there is friendly support to help Kenya to reach its development milestones, including fulfilling its own constitutional mandate and fulfilling the international instruments. I think that support cannot be seen as an extension of colonialism unless it is coming with strings attached. And I think days of support with strings attached are gone, and partners sit and negotiate how they want to relate to one another. I have not particularly had complaints about the way in which Germany or even the European Union or any of our partners currently is engaging with us. But sometimes there's reluctance within official circles to have civil society supported. Those are difficulties that come about because of the regression in democratic space. But at this time, I am not, and I don't think many of us are complaining about the manner in which our partners are engaging. We're saying welcome and we value your support.
Strings attached. So, Sabine, I think you want to comment on this just to give us perhaps a better understanding also about the projects that are supported and what can be done.
Well, I think with regard to the question, the important thing is also to look which initiatives are there on the African continent, which initiatives are there in Kenya, and then support such initiatives and not to come up with your own initiative and ask countries to participate. I think that's the main thing in order for like reproaches like the guest was saying about new colonial ties not to come up. So that's the one thing. And then that's on the political level. And if we look at concrete project level, especially in the business area, I think there are opportunities to cooperate, again, looking what is actually on the ground. Like, for example, I can give the example of a project in Turkana. It's actually not a project, it's a business called Learning Lions, which seeks to connect the remote area of Turkana in the north of Kenya to the digital space. So it's a digital learning hub, and it's actually a project that is both supported by Kenyan and German stakeholders. So I think, especially in the business area, there's also a great way to look for specific women opportunities and look for local businesses or projects that can be cooperated with.
Thank you so much, Sabine. There is another question from the audience to Martha. How do you relate with local poor and vulnerable women at grassroots communities to have the confidence to move out of their positions and also see better future for their children?
I think one of the way, when I was a serving member of parliament, engaging with them directly, encouraging them, taking civic engagement to them and having those open discussions. And I think even now, there is still civic engagement going on by the various civil society organizations so that women reclaim their agency at whatever level, to demand better services by their county assemblies, by their county governments, and to demand accountability by their leaders. We cannot say we are there yet, but this is a continuous engagement because the civic duty does not end with voting. Citizens must continue holding their leaders to account and ensuring that the leaders are accountable to them and are serving them, not their interests. We are far away from getting there. It is a work in progress.
And what about the corruption level?
The corruption levels are high, regrettably, and corruption has been devolved from the national to the county. And it doesn't help that the many corruption cases in court are sometimes taking too long to end. We are not seeing convictions. We are seeing leaders return to office when their cases are pending. Luckily, the new Chief Justice has promised to ensure speedy disposal of cases. She is barely just about 100 days in office, and we are hoping that working with other actors in the justice sector, something is going to be done, and this will discourage impunity and lessen corruption. But the other way is also ensuring that in the forthcoming elections, general elections next year, voters must be encouraged to elect people of integrity so that we can be able to improve the lives of the people, to tailor programs that get our people out of poverty, that give them the basic services like health, education, water, sanitation, things that they need to free them to become productive citizens.
Another question, what to do to encourage young women to get engaged in politics? Do you think that the young female generation will be more involved in politics in the future? Do you notice a positive change of the cultural norms among the younger generation, men and women? So perhaps both of you can answer this question. Sabine, perhaps you can start.
Well, I mean, one commendable thing that has happened is that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics actually wrote the first Women Empowerment Index last year in 2020. And that index, though the data is limited, it does suggest that the most empowered women are in the age group of 15 to 19 years and the least empowered in the age group of 40 to 49. So there seems to be a shift in generation. Other factors that really influence this empowerment, by the way, were the economic situation. In the richest quintile of Kenyan society, more than 50% of women were empowered, while only 6% in the poorest quintile were empowered. Another big difference was between urban and rural women, with 40 and 21% respectively, and also regarding education, with more than 60% of women empowered when there's higher education in the household, and only 10% when there's the least education in the household. So yeah, there does seem to be definitely a shift in the generations.
I would say there is a positive shift, but not 100%. There are many more women, and especially young women, coming forward to vie. They may not necessarily be supported by the environment, especially by the political parties, by being given a chance in the winnable seats. But I've also noticed a trend that in our parliaments, when there is a debate about the need for gender parity, the need to give space to women to participate, you hear very strong negative language by young males. So we should not take it that because we have a constitution with gains, the society is sensitized. We must have a continuous engagement with society, with every parliament that is elected, because in Kenya, we have a very high attrition rate of over 70% whenever there is a general election. So we must continue to sensitize incoming members of parliament, society, right from the schools, so that we entrench good, healthy gender relations, gender consideration, healthy competition, rather than what is seen as animosity, between the genders. Because when women ask for their space in politics and decision-making, is seen as being hostile to the men. Because men have always had the space and they have also this sense of entitlement. So we need continuous dialogue to level the field so that we see each other, the two genders see each other as partners. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, dear audience, also for your interesting questions. And another one was to you, Martha, also a question about the first African woman who got a Nobel Prize in 2004, Warangi Maathai. And so the question was if you worked with her and if you helped her to get into the parliament. So this was the question in German.
I had the pleasure to work with her, to know her. I did not help her get into parliament. She campaigned and came into parliament in 2002. I was going in for my third term. She came in for her first term. We worked very well together. Wangari was an icon even then in the eyes of both Kenyan men and women. We had been together in civil society fighting for democracy and human rights. She's a person we respected. She was an assistant minister in environment when I was a minister in water. And when she won the Nobel Peace Prize, she was very busy and therefore she was not able to recapture her seat in parliament. But up to this day, the Kenyan society, all of us are in awe of the work she did. She sensitized Kenya on the environment, on the need to increase our forest cover, on the need for us to look after the environment so that it may sustain life. So it was my pleasure to know her, and she's a person we credit with a lot and a role model to many, both men and women. Yeah.
Sabina, how important are role models, female role models in East African countries?
Well, I believe pretty important because after all, they show that there is a way, despite all the challenges, and there's a myriad of challenges, as we have heard, there is a way to change perceptions, there is a way to participate in politics, and there's a way to make an impact. So definitely, I would say they are important.
Yes, most of our audience is probably from Germany or from other European countries. So perhaps we don't know many young female voices in Kenyan politics. So Martha, if you think now about the upcoming elections, which names we should look on, like young, energetic female women politics?
I think there are very many, because we have women in all the 47 counties vying for the county assemblies. We have women in all the 47 counties vying for women rep, and we have women vying for the constituency seats, women vying as senators, women vying as governors, and I'll be one of them vying as governor. Although I had vied for president before, I say I haven't finished business with the presidency. God giving me long life, I'll still go back there. But for the time being, I'll vie for governor. There are many women. I can't, it is I can't just cite 1, 2, because of the 2 levels where women are getting elected. There are just so many, but there are outstanding women who are likely to come up. In Nairobi County, the Deputy Chief Whip, Waithera Chege, is a young woman elected as an MCA in one of the Nairobi wards, and I know she'll be defending her seat. I know many other young women like her already elected. Then I know others who are coming up, who were nominated, but now want to vie. There are many. It would not do justice to name 1, 2. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Martha. The audience, we have still 5 minutes left. So if you have questions to Martha Karua or Sabina Odhiambo, then it's now the time to write it in the chat to take this last chance. I know that it's already Friday 6 and you're staying with us already 1 hour, but you can take this chance. So we're still waiting for your questions. And in the meantime, Martha, you said you're already senior politician. So I hope I still may ask you about your vision for Kenya. When you dream about Kenya, what you're dreaming about?
I want to see a country whose foundation is the rule of law. Because once there is a foundation of the rule of law, then services to the people will be given without self-interest. There will not be conflict of interest. People's priorities are stated in our constitution and in the party's manifesto will be paramount. I want to see a Kenya where the rights of everybody, irrespective of social status, is recognized and protected. I want to see a peaceful country. I want to see a Kenya where everybody can have basic services. The deterioration of governance goes hand in hand with deterioration of services. Impunity and corruption goes hand in hand with an impoverished people, a hungry nation, and a country that does not give equal opportunities. This is what we really must eradicate in our country. And this is what I'm fighting for. And I know there are many silent majority who are fighting for this. And we will succeed in the end.
Thank you so much. Sabina, you lived 8 years or over 8 years in Nairobi. The country is so close to your heart, but you're actually based now in Berlin. Probably will one day move back, I don't know. But what are your wishes for Kenya and for Kenyan women?
Well, for Kenya, especially with view to the upcoming elections, I would really love to see an election campaign focusing on issues and not on political alliances. So Martha mentioned many of those issues, so it would be nice if those were in the foreground and we would actually get to hear how the politicians are planning to tackle those issues in the next 5 years after the election. For Kenyan women in particular, I also agree with Martha. I do hope that there will be even more now vying for seats, because also in the last election, it was only 9% of total candidates that were actually female. So there's definitely still a lot of room for improvement. So I do hope that there will be further representation for Kenyan women after the next election.
We also got a comment from the audience that they agree with your vision and your wishes for Kenya, for Kenyan women. And at this point, I want to thank you so much for this inspiring discussion within the series Female Changemaker. It was already the 7th event in this year. Thank you, Martha, so much that you joined from Nairobi, Kenya, to inspire us. I think, well, I'm full of energy now because you said that we always have to move forward. Thank you so much also for the insight about the situation of women in Kenya, what can be still improved. And also Sabine, to you from Berlin, how the cooperation between Germany and Kenya looks like, what can be done too, and which are best practice projects in the field of women empowerment. Thank you to you also, Sabine, as a cooperation partner, German Afrika Foundation, Deutsche Afrika Stiftung, and once again to Inge and to Katrin and Johanna from the office of the Federal State of Baden-Württemberg of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. Please have a look on our other discussions we had during the year. It's just #FemaleChangemaker, and we cordially invite you to join the next one. We will have one other discussion this year, well, if you follow the social media accounts and the homepage and the YouTube channel, you will be informed by the Naumann Foundation. So thank you very much to both of you and to the great audience to bringing in the question. I wish you all a nice day or a nice evening. Nice election weekend in Germany on Sunday, and all the best to you, and see you next time at Female Changemaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and best wishes in your elections too.
Thank you.
Thank you.